So guys, let's have a look at how I tie a solid bag. I'm going to run you through the components and what you need. Solid bag fishing is something that I absolutely love doing all year round, but especially in the colder months, it's perfect for putting out a tiny portion of bait, or as small as you want to go with the solid bags, on a spot, and it's perfectly presented. I don't think you can really present a bait better because everything's concealed in one small portion. I'll run you through what we need. So I use the Fox Camotex Soft, and I actually use the 35 pound. So this is a really strong hook link, and instead of going for a completely uncoated braid, I actually use the soft coated but strip it back, because this stuff is super supple inside. Yeah, and it's absolutely brilliant stuff. And obviously you can go up with the poundage because everything's concealed anyway, so you haven't got to worry about the fish seeing the hook link or anything. But yeah, that's what I use for my hook link. And for the hooks, I don't think you can get better than the Fox wide gate beaked micro barbed in size 5. These are absolutely razor sharp, these hooks. Yeah, and super strong. So that's what you need. Obviously you need a pair of sharp scissors, baiting needle of some sort, a boilie stop, and a tiny piece of 2mm shrink tubing. It's literally just goes over the hook, and then once you shrink it down, it sits really flush and really nice to the hook. So yeah, that's the components. And yeah, this is my solid bag kit. So I use the Ridge Monkey buckets. Let's have a look in here. So if I move these components, yeah, these buckets do actually come out, by the way. These tubs come out and they sit straight inside, so it packs away nice and tidy. Got one little bucket to take with you, and you can get all your gear in there. So this is my side one that I use for keeping all the bits in. So I've got a little tub there, and that's just got some super glugged up soft plastics. As you can tell, that was yellow corn and now it's pretty much fluoro orange. Some yellow stuff in there as well, yellow corn. There's some fake pellets in there. Yeah, just a good array of bits, and I often keep like zig foam and stuff in here as well, actually. Yeah, and then you've got your loader tool from the Fox Rapide system, and obviously the collar that goes over, and then just a good array of solid bags as well. These are actually the fast mount bags for this time of year. I've got loads of the slow mount ones in there as well. Also got some PVA tape in there just in case. And I keep a little spoon in there as well, and that just comes in handy when you're trying to keep the bag all tidy, and I don't really like to spill the pellets everywhere. Yeah, in the main compartment I've just got pot hook baits. These are just the S7 half-tone hook baits. This is just an empty bottle of what was called a Kiana goo, and now it's just full of hemp oil. And then for my pellets, all I've got is the crayfish mini mix pellets from DNA Baits, and these things smell incredible. And in this side compartment, as you can see, I've got a couple of solid bags already tied, and yeah, this one has got boilie crumb. So I don't use ground bait in my solid bags very often. I actually just use really finely crumbed up SLK boilies. So what I do, the SLK is actually a freezer bait that I'm using. But what I've done is I've crumbed them all up in a blender, smashed them all to pieces into a really fine crumb, and then what I like to do after that is get them out on a tray and actually put them in the oven for a little while, just on a really low heat, and it really dries it out. So you get it's almost like a ground bait, but as soon as you add water to it, it does come back to life, and it smells incredible still anyway. But yeah, so it's quite a fishy solid bag that I'm going to go for here, and I use this all through the year. Also, it's worth noting that the lead system that I like to use inside the solid bag is the inline system, but this is an inline drop-off system, as you can see there. So yeah, it's just I've got literally about a foot to a foot and a half of leader spliced down, and all I've got on there is a towel rubber, which just slides on the leader, and then down at the business end you've got, this is a ring swivel, but it's one of the double ring swivels. As you can see there, you've got 2 rings and just a swivel. So what you do is you splice the leader to one of the rings, the actual swivel goes inside the lead, and then you just tuck the end of the inline lead into there, and that sits lovely, just like that. That's just so if a fish picks you up, you're going to dump the lead, and also just to keep it safe for in case you have a break off or any problems. And if you're interested in knowing how I tie these leaders, because I get a bunch of these tied up in advance, if you're interested in that, then just leave a comment and let me know, and maybe I'll make a video on that too. But yeah, that's the leader. So let's have a look at the rig. So what you do is you take coated braid, take the amount you want. I like to take enough so you're not playing around with any small amounts. And as you can tell, this is super supple anyway. I have actually played around with using it coated in solid bags, and it does work as well, but I don't think it packs down as nice, so I do like to strip it back. So just take the Fox puller tool. So let's just strip back a section of this. As you can see how soft it is. You can actually do it with your fingers as well, it's that soft. But as you can see, the inner core of this it's quite a light colour, but it is seriously soft, and it feels silky smooth when you're touching it. It's almost waxy. But this is £35, and I mean, it's super thin. So all you do is you take the end of your material and you're going to tie an overhand loop. So to do that, you just make a small loop in the line, pull it together, and then just tie a knot in that loop. So the way I like to do it is create another loop using the loop, and then take your baiting needle, come through the loop, and then grab the little end of the loop and pull it back through, just like that. There we go. And you can put your puller tool straight in there and get that pulled down nice and tight. This loop's not got to take any strain, it's just for your hook bait, so you haven't got to worry about the knot too much. So now you've got a length of material with a loop in the end. So once you've got your rig material with your loop, little overhand loop tied in it, you're going to then need a hook bait. So this is one of the Halftones Secret 7 hook baits from DNA Baits, and these are 15mm, but we're not going to use it as 15mm, we're going to trim it down. There you go, that will about do. So let's take our baiting needle. So I've actually tapered this slightly, so thinner one end, so I'm going to go in through the thin end first. Once you've got your trimmed down pop-up ready on your baiting needle, time to put it on your rig. So just add it to your loop, pull it down onto your rig. You can open that loop up a little bit if you find it easier, and then you just need to add your boilie stop. There we go. So we've got a pop-up on a piece of material. So now you take your 2mm piece of shrink tubing and you just thread that down the piece of material. And now we take our hook, and you're going to go hook point first. And you're going to thread a piece of shrink tube over the hook, just like that. Make sure that your rig material is coming out of the back of the shrink tubing, and then you're going to pull your hook bait to about where you want it. So I don't like to have it super tight like this, because I like there to be a bit of movement. So I like that separation. So I like to add, depending on the size of the hook bait, I like to have about half the size of the hook bait gap between the hook and the hook bait, and that just allows loads of movement, and when the fish blows it back, it works perfectly. So now we take the end of our rig material, and we're going to go through the back of the eye, making sure to hold that all in place with your finger. And now you'll notice on the hook material comes around here and joins that way, so you're going to want to come this way. I like to go 6 turns and then 2 back, 1, 2. I want to thread the end of the material back through the eye. It's important to go back through, so you're exiting the same end as the point, and that just gives you the right angle for hooking. And now it's just about getting the length of the rig that you want. So I actually do not like to go too long with my solid bag rigs. I like to keep it all really short so it compacts down nicely in the bag, and it doesn't take too long for the fish to meet the lead. if we were to keep the hook on the end of my finger, just like that, I like the rig to be about that length. So I'm going to pinch it all together there. And it's important now, we're going to tie another loop this end, but this loop has got to be strong. So I don't like to just do an overhand knot, I like to do a figure of 8 knot. And I've never ever had a figure of 8 knot slip on me. So we're going to make it big enough to get the size of the hook bait through, and that'll become apparent in a minute when we attach it to the lead system. So let's tie another loop, and then what you're going to do is basically you're going to twist that loop basically against itself, so it goes round again like that. See, so we grab both of those loops, keeping them even, twist them round, and you're going to thread this one through the eye of the loop, and you'll know if you've done this right because it will make an 8 shape, hence the figure of 8, and then you pull it tight. Before you bed everything down nice and tight, you want to wet it, and then with your rig tool you can just give it a pull. You can actually pull it from the hook this end. Just take your scissors, snip it off. Don't have to go too close to the knot if you don't want. There we go, so we've got a loop this end, just big enough for everything to go through, and that's all you need. So one thing you can do is just use a tiny bit of putty in the middle of the rig. You haven't got to worry too much about the end of the loop because that's going to be near the lead anyway, and this is all going to settle down nicely because of the weight of the hook. So now what we've got to do is to make sure everything sits nice and properly in the bag, because I don't want this, even though I'm using a pop-up, I don't want it to work as a pop-up, I want it to work as a wafter. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a split shot just below in that gap, right where we need the separation. And we can butt that nicely up against the bait, so that keeps the weight of the bait down. So yeah, now we can add just a drop of putty just in the centre of the rig if we like. There we go. So you can see nice thin little blob of that, and we're using quite dark pellets in the bag, so these dark blobs aren't going to matter, and all of this rig's going to be concealed anyway. There we go. So let's attach it to our lead system. So we've got our lead system here. So you're going to take the ring that's not connected to anything, you're just going to push your loop through it. Okay, open the loop up, and you're just going to pop your hook bait straight through, and then make sure everything pours down nice and tidy, and there we have it. So that's still got loads of movement there, and it's super supple. So now all that's left to do is shrink down this tiny piece of 2mm shrink tubing, and that's just going to keep the hair exiting exactly where we want it. So that's going to be in line with the barb. So as you can see there, it's just going to be exactly in line. So an important thing to note is, depending on the buoyancy of your bait, is how you want your rig components to work. So if you're using a bottom bait, and it's going to react heavy in water, so what you need to be doing is you need to be trapping the hair further around the bend, maybe on the end or up here, that the weight of the bait is going to pull down and it's going to make the point of the hook heavy, so it's going to send that hook home. Or against that, you can have a longer hair and a little bit more separation, and that's going to allow for the hook bait to fall and actually pull the hook down. But if you've got buoyancy in your bait, like a wafter or pop-up, then you're going to want to use like the old KD system, where you're whipping like maybe 2 whips, and then you're pulling the hair back and you're whipping further down the shank, and that's going to make the actual eye of the hook light, so it's going to pull that up and in turn make the point of the hook heavy. But yeah, with this system on here, it's a really good hookup ratio. There's my solid bag rig, all nice. So let's get that shrunk down, and then we'll tie a bag up. So there we have it, all shrunk down. Literally just hold it over the kettle until it tightens up. So yeah, it just keeps everything perfectly aligned and keeps everything in position. When it's laying down, that's going to just sit just like that. So yeah, that's a lovely little solid bag rig set up, and this has caught me hundreds of carp. So let's have a look at how we put it in the actual solid bag and how we rig it all up. First of all, so yeah, let's take out one of the Fox Rapide. These are the small loader ones. Yeah, the 60 by 130s, which is absolutely perfect, and this is the actual cold mount ones. So it's important to get a cold mount one if you're fishing in cold weather with these, because a long mount one could take up to 5 minutes and even more to even mount. So yeah, just a really thin bag. So just open it up. All you got to do now is take your loader tool. You can use the collar, so it makes things a little bit easier if you want to use that, or if you want to just squeeze it in your hand, you can do that. We'll use the collar for now. Play with it a little bit until you can get it in the bag. Get it all nice and straight. So you want that V in the plastic loader to be basically central to the bag. So you've got the 2 side pieces. Once you've got the bag up to the line, just take the collar off and that springs out. So now what we need to do, you don't have to use crumb or ground bait if you don't want to. You can just use really fine mixed pellets, but you do pack the bag down a lot tighter if you use the crumb. Tiny bit of that in there, and you just gotta work it down to the bottom of the bag basically. Nice little portion of that in the bottom of the bag. And now take our rig, just lower our hook bait in. I like to put it so the hook bait is in kind of a corner like this, and we're going to lay it down so the hook is flat. So now I like to drop a tiny bit more crumb over the top. So for this, because I can't use the scoop anymore, I like the spoon. There we go. Take a spoonful of that and just drop it over the top. Gets a little bit messy. There we go. So now everything's covered, and you can just use your lead to sort of tamp it down, get all the crumb into those gaps. And now I like to lift the lead just a tiny bit, just so there's a small gap, and then just trap it in the loader feeder. And now we're going to use our spoon again. We're going to get some of those pellets in the bag, literally one spoonful, and that just gives us a tiny little layer. Just gently tap everything down, and now we can literally just lay our lead centre of the bag. We know our hook point's covered, we haven't got to worry about tangles. And the beauty of this system is that the rig is actually coiled near the lead, and I think that's important. Often or not, you'll find that if you cast out with these stiff rigs that you use these days, like hinge stiff rigs and Ronnie rigs and things like this with stiff booms, where the rig is pushed as far away as it can from the lead, the fish haven't really got much room to hang themselves. It's almost like if they're sat, you know, a couple of inches away from the actual hook bait and it's fully extended already, if they open their mouths and suck from the bottom, everything off the bottom is going to fly up into their mouth. But if your rig is already at its furthest extension, it can't fly up into their mouth. So I often think that if your rig's got a little bit of play, you're definitely gonna maximise those bites. So yeah, we've got our lead centre bag, and now it's just a matter of filling it up with a pellet. Give it a good shake. You can really squeeze these down. You don't have to be too gentle with these. These solid bags are really, really robust. So yeah, we've got a load of pellets in there. We're probably about halfway, and I like to sort of 3/4 fill them. One more spoonful, and before I finish, I like to put another spoonful of the crumb in there. So when we're shaking it and getting all the air out, that crumb's going to work its way down through the pellets and just take up any extra air gap. And you'll notice the bag will get slightly tighter now. It's got a bit more of a shine to it, and it's starting to work its way down into the pellets now. And that is about perfect. Give the bag a couple of twists, and then you're going to want to just wet your finger and run it around the edges here, or you can lick the bag. There we go. And now you're going to just slide it down over. This end's not very neat because it's slipped off the loader. There we go, but it's not going to cause us any problems. Just make sure you find out which way the seam goes. It goes that way, so I'm just going to pinch the corners, push them in slightly, get all the bait out of the bag in the corners, pull it a little bit so you make sure you're getting all the air out and you're pulling the bag really tight. And again, you're just going to lick it here and stick it down. There we go. And once you've licked it, stuck it down, you just hold it with your finger for a few seconds, and that's all stuck down. And you do the same for this corner. And there we go, nice aerodynamic bag, and it's really tight, no air in there at all. And because we've got this on a short leader, you can prepare a load of these in advance. Coil the leader around the bag, and that's a perfectly prepared little solid bag. And I'll just leave them in the little side tub with the crumb. And then when it comes to actually putting them on your rig, all you need to do on your main line, all you need is a figure of 8 loop, a decent sized loop, like you would do with changing a spom or a spod or whatever. And then yeah, just loop to loop this on. So just literally just thread your loop from your main line through this little tiny loop on your leader, and then over the bag, and then pull it all down, and you're good to go. You can just cast this out exactly as it is, or if you like to have a bit more of an oily slick like I do, then get yourself a little bottle of oil. You're going to want something that's good in all conditions. So in these cold conditions, you don't want any fatty, viscous fish oils in these temperatures, because they're going to just congeal and they're not going to actually send out any signals. So this is just hemp oil, and I just put it in a recycled bottle from one of the goos, and I can just stab that straight into the bag and give it a good fill up until the bag squeezes real tight. And yeah, but I'm not going to do that until until I'm going to cast out, you're going to basically put a hole in the bag, and that's going to let air in and it's going to go soft, and also it's going to soak into all your pellets and everything. So you just want it to be in the bag ready for when it explodes in the water, and then you're going to get a lovely slick. There we go, so that's my solid bag.